Oh, is it going?
It's going, but we can clip it, so we're not just, I'll leave it on.
Okay, so again, thank you for coming, and thank you for volunteering to be a judge at our first ever New Jersey Middle School Ethics Bowl. So why don't we just go around, and even for the sake of the people who are on the phone who are conferencing in, just say your name, who you are, and that's it.
Hi, Gabe Crooks. I'm a PhD student at Drew University, and I teach ethics at Seton Hall.
Hi, I'm Lauren Sawyer. I'm also a PhD student at Drew, and my area is ethics.
I'm Joe Fenley, former chair of the New Jersey State Medical Society Ethics Committee.
Lisa Goldman, I'm a Doctor of Medical Humanities student at Drew University, an attorney and a volunteer with the Ethics Institute.
I'm Jim Flacker. I'm the Science Department Chair here at Kent Place School, and I teach in the upper school.
Okay, I'm Karen Rezac, the Director of the Ethics Institute. Our guests on the phone are judges.
Hi, I'm Tracy Kessler. I teach bioethics and ethics at St. Peter's Press. I'm Rachel.
Hi, I'm Raymond Shea. I'm the Director of Technology and also the middle school speech and debate coach at Princeton Academy of the Sacred Heart.
I'm Rachel Folman. I'm the Director of Professional Development for the New Jersey Association of Independent Schools.
I'm Catherine Burns Conifal. I have a DMH from Drew University and I teach bioethics there.
Okay, great. What a great assembly of judges we have. These kids have no idea what they're in for. So, okay, thank you. For those of you who are not here present, we sent yesterday a bunch of information and forms that we're going to go over briefly. And then I've invited members of the high school ethics bowl team to come and do a short mock demonstration of what an actual round is, so that you can get a sense of the things that they say and how to actually go about judging. So on April 30th, we will have 12 teams here representing 7 schools. And those 12 teams are from schools all over the state of New Jersey. The most important thing that I want to emphasize today about the Ethics Bowl is that it is not a debate. It is really meant to be a conversation. And the students have been given, the teams have been given the 6 case studies that we are going to be discussing on April 30th. Those case studies can be found at msethicsbowl.com. I think we've already sent those as well, the case studies. So each of the teams, they've been studying, they've been going over the cases, and they have been trying to determine what they believe is the most ethical choice in each of those cases. For example, do you restrict what SNAP beneficiaries can purchase? In terms of, should people who get SNAP benefits be able to purchase soda and cookies, given the fact that it can become a public health issue that the taxpayer pays for? So the other one is ban the box. Should there be a question on a job application as to whether or not you've committed a felony before, or if you have, if you're an ex-convict. So, so the students, when they get together, they will be sitting, they will be 2 teams of 5, you will have a moderator in the room, and they're going to discuss what they believe, again, is the strongest ethical position about the case. The moderator will ask a question. So, for example, is it ethical to have a box, on an application? And then they'll go into their reasons. There's a flip of the coin to see who goes first. And again, the moderator will do all of these things. It's very scripted. There's actually a script for the moderator. Everything about this is very, very scripted and very precise. And so all you have to do, well, it's not all. All you have to do is you'll be sitting right in the front between the 2 teams, and you just have to listen and score. And so we'll get into that a little bit more. But the teams will have 5 minutes to make a presentation. And the most important thing is that, as it says here, you can't stop their presentation, you can't interrupt them, you can't say, hold on, let me ask you a question there. You just have to listen to what they say. There is a point at the end of it where you will have 10 minutes to ask questions of the team. And that's where, and again, I ask you to remember that they're middle school students, but that really is the place to challenge them. One of the things that we talk to them about over and over again is that in order to really be a solid team, you have to understand all the aspects of this case, not just the side that you are presenting. You have to understand the other side. And so what I recommend to you as judges is that you ask them about the other side of the case. Okay? All right. So the teams will speak for 5 minutes, the presenting team, and here comes somebody else. And if you take a look at, good morning.
Good morning, Karen.
How are you?
Hi,
Here we're going over. Are there any questions? Okay. So if you take a look at the score sheet and the scoring criteria, now, the students will not be allowed to bring any notes with them into the competition. And so what happens is we flip the coin, and whoever wins the coin flip determines if they want to present first or if they want to respond first. But they don't know the case yet. So after they make the decision as to whether they're going to present first or respond first, then they're given the case. And they're given the case face down, and they're given scrap paper and pens, and then they see the case, and then the presenting team is given, like, I think it's 2 minutes to prepare. The important thing to remember, too, is that you may have one person speaking from the team. They can have up to 5. You can have all 5 speaking. You can have 4, 3, it doesn't matter. And you don't take points off because there was one dominant voice. It does not matter if it's one person or if they split it up amongst the 5. That's very, very important. A lot of times judges think, well, you know, only one kid clearly knew what was happening, but it doesn't matter, okay? That has no impact on the score. The most important thing is, are they clear and systematic about their reasons why they think the way they think? And do they give the reasons why they think the way they think? That is probably the thing you're listening to most of all. And so this rubric here, was the team's presentation clear and systematic? Did it identify the central moral dimensions of the case? And did they indicate an awareness and consideration of different viewpoints, especially the viewpoint of those who would differ or who would disagree with them? And so based on 1 to 5, now I have judged in Long Island. The hardest one to judge is the first one, because, you know, did I judge too hard? Did I judge too easy? What is the other team going to sound like? So I'll be honest with you, after I listened to the second team, I went back and changed a little bit. So feel free to use a pencil, especially for the first one. Then they'll present their case, and then you score them. And then Team B will have a chance to respond to the other team, to the presentation. Now, in the response, I think it's really important, as the rubric says, and this is here on this one, responding team's commentary, that it's obvious they listened to the other team because they all have memorized their parts. And so if all they're worried about is what they memorized and regurgitating, that's not a high point. All right, so that they listened and that they respond specifically to what the other team said. and that they can add a few insights. Now, sometimes both teams have the same perspective. Sometimes they have different perspectives. If they have the same perspective and they're just, not arguing, but they're discussing the same thing, the question is, did the other team add something to the conversation, or did they not add something to the conversation? And then Team A has a chance to respond to the response, and you have to score that. Now, sometimes the Team B's response is like a litany of questions, which I personally don't particularly care for, but because to me it doesn't say that they really thought about anything. But you can decide that, because you'll be the judge of that. And then Team A has to respond appropriately to Team B's commentary. And then you have 10 minutes to ask the presenting team questions. And I really think, and again, it goes here, presenting team's response to your questions, that's worth 20 points. That is really where the round is won or lost. And so, if you look at this Long Island High School Ethics Bowl sheet, here are, you can make up your own. I mean, you don't have to follow this at all. It's just, suggestions for some questions that you might ask the presenting team. And so they have 10 minutes, you have 10 minutes to ask questions, and they respond. Okay? Questions? I'd love to know where my team is so that it would make more sense.
Who are the students?
I forget.
Look like. Oh.
I forget. Or I know the middle school team is practicing in the other room. I could have them come in and do a presentation, because I think that it will be really important for you to hear it, because it's one thing for me to be talking about it in theory, it's another thing for you to actually hear the case. You want to go see it? Yes.
Catherine, would that be actually fair to the process coming
No.
up for us to
You'll
even hear
forget.
the middle school team?
You'll forget. It's only middle school. That's why I asked the high school students to
Well,
come.
the middle school, and that's my concern. It's not so much high school students, but, dealing with middle school students is a completely different ballgame.
True. Well, we'll hope for the best here at 8:15. They just come in at 8:15, so I asked them to be here at 8:15. So are there questions up to this point? Yes.
So the 10 minutes of question asking, is that all the judges, like, some people asking questions, or each individual asking questions?
Well, each individual judge can ask a question. So what the moderator will say after Team A's response to the response is, judges, you will now have 10 minutes to ask questions of Team A. Would you like a chance to confer? And so then as judges, you can discuss, what do you think? What do you want to ask? Do you want to ask something? What should we ask? As a team, kind of, you do it together. What would you say about the door? Oh, well, these are the middle school students. Yeah. We might change our mind, so just go into the CFI and I'll let you know what we decide, okay? All right, good. Thank you.
Karen, this is Tracy at St. Peter's. Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
I don't know if you want it all.
I believe you said that it's fine if both teams, have a similar opinion or a similar response, but what would give them more points or higher is if they added something to the conversation. Is that correct?
If they added something to the conversation, so the most important thing as judges is, did the team listen to the other team? And so, for example, if in the ban the box case, if Team A talks about, they shouldn't ban the box because of the safety of the other employees or something, right? When the responding team says something, they can say, you mentioned the safety of the other employees. We also thought about that, but we thought about it, you know, in the context of X, Y, or Z. And then, or they can say, you know, but did you think about, and then they could ask a question. So you want to
Very
make
good.
sure that they listened, they mentioned it, and that they just don't go off on their own tangent and start talking as if the other team isn't even in the room.
Excellent. Okay, thank you so much for clarifying.
You're welcome. Other questions?
No, I was just going to mention for the judges, one of the things that I've seen as I've observed the rounds is that typically, what I've seen is that they'll say to the judges, you can each ask a question and a follow-up question. And I'm only mentioning that not to constrain you, but to just give you a sense of how much of an opportunity you may have or may not have to really pepper them with questions, because they will try to respond thoroughly to whatever you ask, and the 10 minutes can go very quickly. So for planning purpose, what has seemed to work well when I have observed is when a judge has planned for one question and possibly one follow-up to it, as opposed to a list of 5 or 10 that they want to try to drive through.
Yes. Now, one of the things that I've seen also is if a team is really, well, no team is bad, but if their presentation was not stellar, that sometimes it's hard to ask questions. And then the judges sit there, you know, with like 3 minutes left. Try to ask them anything, you know what I mean? Because especially with middle school, you know, their egos are very easily damaged, and they're very, very, very nervous about this. I can just speak for our own Kent Place team. You know, they're very nervous, and they take everything very, very personally, and they're really trying very hard. So, you know, if you could, you know, ask them questions, that would be great. Now, we're going to ask each judge at the end of the round to say, you don't have to say what your scores were, to say, in your judgment, who won the round. So the moderator will say, first judge, and you'll say, both teams did a great job. Thank you for the insight. You know, this is what they all say. I'm being facetious. I gave the round to Kent Place, or I'm just making it up, right? And then Judge 2 will be asked the same thing. Judge 3 will be asked the same thing. The teams that will make the final round are the teams with the most wins, okay? Meaning, how many judges judge them to win. So they could have up to 6. Now, let's say a couple of teams have 6, you know, because there's 3 judges in each of the 2 rounds. Then it goes to the points. So then whoever has the most points will be the ones who make it to the final round. Okay? Questions? All right, this is what we're going to do. I'll have the middle school kids come in here and just do a presentation and then leave. Like, we won't ask them any questions, but this way we can get a sense, and then we can talk about what we heard. Would that be okay? All right, ask the
Do you want
last.
to add both teams or one team?
No, just one. Just to come in
Preference of which of them?
and pick, to do either the box or the snap. Tell them
Okay.
to come in.
And either team is fine?
Either one is fine, and 5 of them.
Fine, so,
They're
okay.
practicing right now. I'm very disappointed with my high school team. Oh, they were all coming. They were all coming. I guess when you get to high school and you know, you've finished one thing, you've moved on to the next. We're having our celebratory lunch today. They finished 6th at the Nationals this year. So,
How many companies?
24 teams.
Very good.
Right. So, but last year we finished 1st. So, it's considered a loss.
But the national pool started with 4,000
4,000,
students,
right.
so to finish 6th is extremely
Oh,
impressive.
absolutely. And I'm going to point that out to them today at their celebratory lunch, which maybe we won't be doing since they didn't show up this morning.
Of course, it also speaks to how you guys have catalyzed the whole thing. You've been around like 20 years, I don't know.
It's the 11th year.
11th year.
Yeah.
But the idea that there's so many schools doing it, that's.
Oh, it's grown. It's absolutely grown. Yeah, one of the things that I really am pleased with when I thought about it after I got over the fact that we didn't win was, like 3 years ago, well, we've won the New Jersey Championship 3 years in a row. That's how you get to the nationals. You have to win your state competition. And so 3 years ago, we finished in third. Last year, we finished in first. And this year, we finished in sixth. We lost by 1 point of a judge. But that's the way it goes because it's subjective. I mean, it's, you know, we did not answer sufficiently one of the judges' questions in the quarterfinal round. And so I knew we lost, you know, because if you don't demonstrate that you really understand the complexity of the issue. Hello, girls, how are you? Good.
Good morning.
Come on up, don't be nervous. So, this is our Kent Place School team, and so these are some of the judges, and there are some who are on the phone who are actually videotaping, and I'm teaching them how to judge. So what I'd like for you to do is to do your 5-minute presentation on either the SNAP or the Ban the Buck. This is a draft. They're not finished working on it yet. So which one do you want to do? Ban the box. All right, ban the box. So I'm going to time you for 5 minutes because that also, did they leave too much time? Did they go over time? And, okay, you ready? And again, they will have no notes. So whatever they say on that day, the teams will have to memorize. Okay, begin.
We believe that it is not ethical to have a question on the initial application asking about the criminal history of the applicant. We made this decision based on the values of compassion, equality, and justice. We believe the value of compassion plays a major role when thinking about banning the box. Compassion is empathy and concern for the suffering or misfortunes of others. As the employer, you should feel compassion towards the ex-convict since they need the job because when in jail they cannot provide for their family. If they cannot find another way to provide for their family, they will resort to more crime. The recidivism rate is 67.8% of ex-convicts are rearrested within 3 years, and unemployment is one of the main causes. After being convicted, one of the most challenging things that can ruin successful re-entry into society is not being able to find a job. Formerly incarcerated men and women struggle to find housing and employment and turn to addiction and drugs after not being able to find employment successfully. They also face unfair death rates due to drug overdose and suicide. This all traces back to not being able to find a job and get back on their feet after jail. Larceny is the most committed crime in the USA. Over 60% of the population has been reported or turned in for theft. That means over 7 million people a year have stolen something. According to a recent study, motivation behind theft is mostly because of financial desperation. How do we expect these criminals to move on and become better if we do not give them the chance to do so?
We also believe that the value of equality should be considered when thinking about banning the box. Seeing the box checked can immediately bring a bias to the mind of the employers about the ex-convict applying for the job. Statistics have shown that the box checked can immediately reduce the employer's callback rate by 50%. It is important to value the ex-convict's qualifications, not just the fact that they have the box checked. In fact, statistics have shown that employers say that 82% of the ex-convicts they have hired have been at least as successful as an employer without a criminal history, according to a report done by Society of Human Resources Management. If we judge them by only their criminal history, this would not give them an equal opportunity as the other applicants, and that would be unethical.
Having a box automatically initiates a bias in the employer's mind, therefore reducing the probability of getting a job even if they are qualified. Applicants without a conviction are 63% more likely to be called back than those with a conviction, according to a study done by Yale Law. Also, having a box is an oversimplification because the crimes range from petty crimes to first-degree murder, so it would not be equal if someone who has done a small, petty crime to not get a job that he or she is qualified for. Additionally, this reduced opportunity from just having the permanent shame of having a criminal history makes it less likely for these people to return to normal life and be an equal participant in society.
Our last value is justice. It is in our Constitution that the punishment should fit the crime, and the people applying have already served their time as deemed necessary by the justice system. There is no need for applicants to pay more for their crime by not having a level playing field amongst other job applicants. There are 77 million Americans with criminal records, which is about 1 in every 3 adults. The unemployment rate of formerly incarcerated people is over 27%, which is a rate higher than the total U.S. unemployment rate during any historical period, including the Great Depression. Unemployment of people with criminal records doesn't just affect their lives, but the country as a whole. Unemployment faced by people with felony convictions costs the economy a loss between $78 and $87 billion a year. These people have paid for their crimes, and we need to give them an opportunity to be better for their benefits as well as the benefits of the country.
The ethical framework of consequentialism is a theory that the consequences of one's conduct are the ultimate basis for any judgment about the rightness or wrongness of that conduct. Thus, from a consequentialist standpoint, a morally right act is one that will produce a good outcome. When a person checks the box on an application
1 minute.
that says they have a criminal record, the employer creates a bias against them that is most often used as reasoning to why they should not be hired. Having a box produces a negative outcome. In this case, the box results in millions unemployed, which hurts many families as well as the economy as a whole. From a consequentialist standpoint, removing the box on the application produces a better outcome. For these reasons, we don't believe that it is ethical to have a question on the initial application asking about the criminal history of the applicant based on the values of compassion, equality, and justice. More unemployment of qualified people will just result in more crime, inequality, and injustice.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. You're working on? All right, good. I'll be there. Okay. So first of all, they're not going to have their scripts. So God only knows of all that they just read, what they're going to come away with. So in terms of, was the presentation clear and systematic?
Yes,
You think so?
I think so.
So what question would you have had?
Well, if I were to ask questions
Yes.
about certain things that were stated,
Yes.
I think two things that stood out for me. One is, yes, it can be a bias, ethically a bias, and this was important to me, that they paid for their crime. But the thing that I think would suffer for them in that argument is that the one comment in the beginning, which was, if they don't get a job, they could revert to crime. Well, that speaks to character.
So that would be a good question
If they're
to
not going to go back to
ask.
that, then what did they learn?
Right, so that would be a great question to ask them, right? Okay, and then how do they handle that question is why, again, the judge's points are up to 20 points. Somebody else, what were you thinking?
It probably wasn't part of it, but I didn't hear anything about the criminal justice system itself. Why is it that you don't trust the criminal justice? And perhaps that's outside the box, that may be inappropriate. But I would have liked to have heard someone say, these people should not suffer because the criminal justice system is more about punishment than it is rehabilitation.
So you could ask them, you didn't really speak about the criminal justice system, and exactly. So ask them a question about it. Do you think it's more about rehabilitation, or is it about paying a consequence for what you've done? So that would be an absolutely appropriate question to ask. Lisa?
Well, you had mentioned earlier that security is another potential value that's implicated by the question about the box. Does an employer have a responsibility to their other employees or to their customers to have a broader awareness of the backgrounds of the people who they employ? Because is there a reasonable concern that they could pose a threat to the security of their colleagues or to their downstream customers, depending on the nature of the offense for which they served time?
So so that was 5 minutes. Okay, then the other team, they will have 2 minutes to confirm and to think about what their response is going to be to what you just heard. Now, they may also feel that it's unethical to ban, to have the box. They may feel it's ethical to have the box. So let's just say they think it's ethical to have the box. So they might use what Lisa just said and say, you know, you mentioned that the person has already served the crime. However, and you mentioned the consequences, you mentioned I mean, this is, I know these are middle school kids. But did you think about the other people who work at the company and their safety? Like, if something were to happen, that would be a terrible consequence, right? So they listened to them, but they added. And if they had the same position, they would be expected to add a piece of the argument that they didn't originally say, okay? So then after they respond for 3 minutes, then that team gets to respond to them for 3 minutes. And so the teams know that they can't give the whole thing away in their initial presentation. So what you're listening to for as judges is, do they really understand the complexity of the case? And then you get to ask 10 minutes worth of questions. And that's the end of the first half of round 1. And then the second half of round 1 is the B team, the responding team, they get a case. They have to do a 5-minute presentation on their case, followed by this team's responding, followed by, and so at the end of that, and then 10 minutes of your questions, that is 1 full round, and then the team that has the most points from you after that 1 full round, they win the round.
Can we share thoughts on how we might have scored
Yes,
this
please.
presentation?
Yes.
So, in terms of the A, B, and C on the scoring guideline, I think, personally, I was thinking that A was a pretty strong, that was a clear and systematic approach. So I would have scored that relatively high. I don't really have any norm stuff, so I don't know.
See, that's what I'm saying, like, that's why you mark the first one with pencil, because,
Right.
you don't really know what to compare it to.
For part B, I thought there may have been some missing dimensions of the case, but they were relatively thorough. So good score, but maybe not the highest score. But also, now you mentioned that some teams may choose to hold off on, they're not going to give away everything, all their thoughts at first. So was it intentional that not everything was included?
But that's okay, because you can only base it on what you hear. You don't know if they've saved something. You don't know, like they know, all the teams know, you have to give it your best shot in your 5-minute presentation. That's what they really prepare for. So, yeah, so I probably would have given it a 3 myself.
And then part C, I thought the viewpoints they gave were thoughtful in consideration. But I would have liked to have heard more about opposing thoughts or opposing views to their views.
I agree with that as well. So I probably would have given them a middle of the road, score on that as well. Other questions, thoughts?
So they can give those opposing views of theirs when they do their presentation?
Yes.
We believe this because we don't believe that for those reasons.
Now, and here's the thing, and that's a really good question. Ethical dilemmas are, there are strong arguments on both sides. But even though they may say, we realize that the safety of everyone, but we think that the stronger ethical argument is that these people have already, paid the price for their crime. And so we don't feel that, you know what I'm saying? So they recognize that there really are ethical issues on this side, but we feel strongly that this is a stronger ethical position. So they don't get to say, this is ethical and this is ethical, thank you. Like they didn't make a decision. They have to make a decision as to which they think is the stronger side. Right? So there's the difference. They recognize the other side, but this is still what we believe is the stronger, and these are the reasons why.
You make an interesting point in terms of my frame of reference is medical bioethics. And we really use the deceptive idea that we never make decisions. We always do. The process moves people one way or the other. And from the standpoint of reality, does that make me a worse judge? And it's a rhetorical question. You know, in other words, I'm used to directing rather than waiting for both truths, if you will. And would that kind of prejudice me as a judge, quad physician kind of thing?
Yeah, I do, and that's fine. I mean, that's why, you know, every judge brings his or her own perspective, right? So, you know, you teach ethics, you're a scientist, you know, I mean, we all come, you're a lawyer, whatever, an educator, I'm an educator. So I don't have that lens, but I bring my own lens, and we have enough diversity amongst the judges that, you know, it'll be fair to the students. But that's the great thing about it, you know, is that each judge brings his or her own lens to, you know, to the case, to the situation. So that's fine.
There's another thing. Now, how old are these children?
They're middle school, so they're between the 5th grade and 8th grade. So, probably 11 to 14 years old. Yes.
And I guess that we would have to be so careful of factoring in their own subjectivity and our subjectivity.
Yes.
That, I guess it's listening to the argument.
Yes, it's totally based it on their argument. You know, the 11 or 12-year-old will have a very difficult time understanding connections and higher level concepts because their cognitive development isn't there yet. You could get a couple of 8th graders who, you know, say, oh, you know, and who are able to make connections, who are able to see the bigger picture, the broader picture. So that's the thing that'll be really interesting to see is, you know, are they very concrete in their thinking, which is just the product of who they are and where they are, or are they able to see some of the more complex, the complexities of what we're talking about. So base it solely on what they say, right? So in a way, it was good that you heard the middle school, because if you heard the high school, you would hear a much different, a much higher level. Other questions?
When it comes to be on the scorecard, and you kind of already touched on this, but it seems to me like there's no way they could obviously identify, thoroughly discuss anywhere near like all of the important issues to a case. So is it more about how well are they framing and centering what they decide to discuss as this is what's most important about this case, rather than they've covered enough breadth? Does that make sense?
So the responding team, the team that, the B?
No, within Team A's presentation, Part B on the scorecard.
Did the team's presentation identify and thoroughly discuss the central
Right. It
marginal?
seems like it'd be very difficult
For them to get all of them.
Thorough
No,
about it.
right.
So is it more, are they framing what they're presenting as the most important elements?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So that what they have identified as the central moral issue, that they're able to discuss it in a way that shows that they understand it.
Okay.
They're not gonna be able to identify all the, right.
I think there's also probably room there for an argument that, you know, if they frame what they think is the most important values that they're going to talk about, but if there's some gaping hole and, you know, if they're talking about things that are clearly less important than something that might be glaringly more important.
Mhm.
Or, you know.
And believe me, because I've heard some of them, you know, you really gotta, you know, bring it in and say, yeah, it's the one about the SNAP benefits is really interesting, because clearly they hear their parents talking about the taxes that they pay, and why should my tax dollars, you know, the taxpayer should be able to make the decision about what people buy who are, you know, who benefit from the tax dollars. And of course, yes, so, you know, so they have a limited understanding, they, you know, but it's really fascinating, and they really do get it. And their ability to respond to each other and to have a conversation with each other about these really difficult moral issues, like they just said there's one about the Red Cross and the Taliban, right? So does the Red Cross have a moral obligation to treat the people who right? It's very good. So, any other questions, thoughts?
This is Tracy. I just wanted to affirm, having worked with 11, 12, and 13-year-olds in my career, I was really impressed that they could and did very eloquently name the values that were important to them, and hearing them talk about that and keep it very concrete, I thought was important. And I feel like maybe I would have judged them a little higher than maybe I should have, simply because of just how eloquent they were able to speak that. So I'm glad we had these questions to look at that other judges have presented. That was helpful.
Mm-hmm. And again, go with your gut. I mean, I can tell you from looking at the score sheets from the nationals, you know, one judge gave us in one round, 43 points, and the other judge gave us 58 points. So, I mean, that's the round we lost because of that 43-point judge, but, it all really works out, in the end. So, go with your gut. Again, everyone comes with a different lens, and so that really just adds to the richness of the experience for the kids.
And then, of course, as you say, that will all be memorized.
Yeah, it'll all be memorized. They can bring no notes with them into the round. They get blank pieces of paper and pens. And so I don't expect to hear the detail that you just heard in their presentations. It's nice when they throw up some statistics to back up their thinking, but it's really more about the ethics than it is about the statistics.
Now we're gonna judge
Two rounds. Yes.
I was gonna say, I wanted to know how much of an eraser I should bring to my. It's fine, I can wait till the end. Okay.
Two. So you'll see 4 teams. Yeah.
Will we have scrap paper or?
Yes. You will have scrap paper. You will also get a copy of the case. And I'm going to have the moderator read the case at the beginning so that you have a chance to read the case and that anyone else who's in the room also understands what's being spoken about. So the moderator will read the case at the beginning.
The moderator keeps time and everything?
Yes, the moderator keeps time, keeps the thing moving. And the moderators are going to be the high school ethics bowl team. So if they're as reliable as they were this morning, I'm thinking perhaps we need to have moderator training for our dear friends. Okay, yes.
Tell a cute story. I use a lot the emperor's clothes, the children are seeing the truth. And the whole story is that the people who sews the clothes are liars. And they don't do anything. And they start out saying, look at the beauty in it. And they themselves produce nothing, and they make millions of dollars doing it. So even the ideas of unless you be like a child, there's a deception to that too. Maybe it's what they hear at home.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely,
That's
definitely what
going
they hear
too
it.
far,
Right, yeah. So I can't thank you enough. You'll hear from us again before April 30th. And it's going to be a very fun day. I'm really looking forward to
How
it.
long is it?
Well, it starts at 9:30 with the welcomes and a couple of little speeches. The first round starts at 9:45. The rounds will be over by noon, and then we'll just ask 3 judges to judge the final round. But certainly if you have other responsibilities or obligations that day, you would be, and you're more than welcome to stay for lunch and everything. We will have awards for the top 2, the first place and second place. So we'll have an awards ceremony after it. And then the winner